Hey there, thanks for stopping by. We're going to keep rolling with going through all of the parts in the game in its current state of alpha. And today we're going to look at the Void Watcher epic parts. Let's hop right in. So again, we'll quickly go through the skill names. We'll go and show you what the Incarnate looks like in the hall and show you the model. And then we'll get into gameplay. So the first skill we'll go over is the mind part. It's called Enthrall. Then we'll talk about the body part called Seeker. And lastly, we'll talk about the soul part called Hunger. Let's go ahead and find this Incarnate in our hall. Take a look. Right here is the Void Watcher icon. We're looking for that purple border and all green buttons here. So let's go ahead and find that. Here we go. There's the purple border, all green buttons. We also have a Death Affinity Incarnate. The way we get that is through two or more parts having the same affinity on them. So this Enthrall, the mind part, has a Death Affinity. Seeker, the body part, has the Death Affinity. And Hunger, the soul part, has Death Affinity. Like I always say, 3 is greater than 2 here. So simple math tells you that the affinity is going to be Death Affinity because there's 2 or more. Let's take a look at the model real quick. Here we go. So this one is, I think this might be the actual background for the Void. I'm not sure. They may be updating this a little bit, but it looks pretty sweet. Definitely just a cool looking take on kind of like the Egyptian flavor or history. So it's got that double kind of scythe weapon there. Just badass looking all around. So all right, let's go ahead and get into the gameplay. All right, so we have our epic Void Watcher here. You can obviously, again, 3 of the green buttons shows that it's got the Void Watcher parts. Bringing an ally with me just to show that the Seeker ability does buff our allies and shows what that buff is. We'll go ahead and get into the gameplay now. All right, so what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to use the body part first called Seeker. Let's read it. Allies in your presence gain Vamp and Surge for 2 turns. Take an extra turn. So I'm going to go ahead and use this, and we'll explain the buffs right after that. So there's the buff. You can see the buffs being applied there. Let's go ahead and make sure. Yep, so there's the Vamp and there's the Surge on both of them and for 2 turns. So that's working pretty great. Let's go ahead and look at Surge. So Surge is you have +1 movement and 25% speed. So your turn meter is going to fill, and in this game it's called Initiative. So your initiative is going to fill faster, and you're going to have a larger movement range. And then we're also talking about Vamp. And so Vamp has 30% extra crit damage, and you heal 30% of the damage you deal. So again, it's like a lifesteal type ability with more crit damage. So that's a pretty awesome skill. You get some good healing, good crit damage out of it. Let's just go ahead and make sure that we get that second turn, and then we'll talk about the next part. So there we go. Same Incarnate is actually going next. That's again because Seeker has that second piece of the ability that says take an extra turn. So there you go. So I think it's actually one of the most powerful body parts in the game right now, just because you get to go faster and you get to have more turns. So you get more buffs and all that good stuff. It's really powerful right now. So we'll get into the mind part here called Enthrall. So attacks enemies in line 4 on each flank. Apply bleed for 2 turns. Create a zombie behind enemies killed by this ability. So a lot to unpack here. Let's talk about the line and the distance first. So based on the card here, you can see that the line is going to be based off your presence stat. So the presence here is 4. So if we hover over here and show you the highlighted squares here, you would expect 1, 2, 3 to end out here. So there you go. So there, yep, perfect. It ends out there. Just remember that your Incarnate is going to have a different presence depending on the parts that you pick. So just know that can be different. It could go down, to 1, 2, 3, 6, whatever it is. But it's going to be based on your presence stats. So just be mindful of that. Let's talk about the other piece of that first sentence there. So it's going to be a line on each flank. So if I move my camera out a little bit and show you where it's going to attack. You can see that it's attacking on either side or either flank of the Incarnate, so that looks good. All right, now let's talk about the second part of or second sentence there. Apply bleed for 2 turns. So if it does attack an enemy Incarnate there, that enemy Incarnate is going to have bleed on them for 2 turns. And remember that bleed is going to be a debuff that does 5% damage every time the enemy Incarnate moves a space or attacks. So it can actually tick quite a bit if they move a long distance, and then it'll also attack once or tick once on the attack. So let's go ahead and get into a position to use this right here. And just remember that it is the flank, right? So if I were to actually point my enemy Incarnate in either of these directions, the flank is actually going to be kind of north-south when you look at it from the starting position of the map. So it's really important that positioning matters here. So you want to make sure that the Incarnate on this particular skill to get this enemy Incarnate attacked needs to be facing either this direction or this direction. So we'll go ahead and turn this way. And then the last piece here, create a zombie behind enemies killed by this ability. So if you were to kill this enemy Incarnate, you would actually spawn an enemy right behind that enemy. So it would end up spawning here. Now remember, whenever you try to spawn something on the map, if there's already an Incarnate there, or it's at the edge of the map, or if there's another rift or zombie there, it's not going to spawn because that space is already taken up. So again, just be mindful of that. The crazy thing about this ability is if you had a lot of Incarnates in this line, low health, and you kill them all with this ability, they would all spawn that zombie right behind the enemy Incarnate. So let's go ahead and use it and see what this looks like. I'm excited to see this animation. So that animation is just, it's pretty awesome. He's throwing his double-sided scythe, if you will, across those 4 spaces in either direction. It looked pretty cool. It did a good amount of damage. There is my bleed, so they have 50% less attack, and then they take damage when they move or attack. So let's go ahead and look at this enemy Incarnate just to make sure it ticks when it attacks. We'll end our turn there. There's the attack. There is the tick, the 5% bleed. All right, let's move on to the last skill. All right, so the last skill we're going to look at is on the soul part. It's called Hunger. Let's go ahead and read it. Attack target enemy and steal max HP equal to 10% of your max HP. So this one's actually a really cool ability because what you're doing is you're transferring max HP across the enemy Incarnate to you. So what it's going to do is you attack. And remember, anytime you see that kind of orange highlighted attack, you're going to have kind of that line of sight issue, but you have to attack something that you can see that's in front of you, unless you specifically have an Eternal or an ability that says you need to attack or you can attack from behind or something behind you. So remember, that's why this is all showing up. These reds are showing up in front of our Incarnate. And again, the attack is going to be based on your range. So we have a range of 4. And if we look at the highlights, we should see 1, 2, 3, 4 highlighted. The reason we don't see this box highlighted is because we actually are having a line of sight issue. You can see that we're 3 spaces above this other space. We cannot see that space, which means it's not going to be highlighted because we have line of sight problems. But we do have the ability to attack this Incarnate. Let's go ahead and take a look at it, and we'll see what happens. All right, so you saw the attack, and then you saw that my ally or my Incarnate got a max HP up, and the enemy Incarnate got a max HP down. So what it did, it lowered their max HP by 10% of my max HP, and then gave me an additional 10% max HP on my ally Incarnate. I think that's actually going to be a really powerful ability, especially if you're going to build a very tanky Incarnate with this piece on it. It's just going to make it easier to kill the enemy, and it's going to make you a lot tankier. The one thing I'm not 100% sure of is whether or not that max HP gain is present the entire fight. So I'm gonna ask the developers now that I'm thinking about that question, and I'll try to get a response out to you guys via the comments when I get that answer. And there we go. We just went through all 3 parts for the Void Watcher, the epic parts. I think a couple of them are actually going to be really strong. I think that Seeker body part is going to be really strong in the game. Having tested it and played with it around so far, I think that the Hunger body soul part is going to be pretty strong, especially on a tank. Which one do you think is going to be used a lot in the game? Just based on seeing it and based on your play time that you might have since the alpha has kicked off. If you liked the video and you found it informative, there's a like button for a reason. Feel free to press it. It would help me out a lot. If you like the content and you want to see more, feel free to subscribe to the channel, and I'll do my best to get as much content as I can out. And, like I said, feedback is always important, so comments are great. Feel free to leave one, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. I hope you enjoyed, as always, and we'll see you in the next one.